Dr. Gassert is the head of business development and communication at Teekampagne, and she holds a master's in business administration from the University of Lueneburg, which is now called the University of Leuphana. Please correct me if I'm pronouncing it incorrect. Yeah, Leuphana. Okay, all right. Yeah, and then before working with Teekampagne, she was working as an academician, as a researcher at the chair of marketing and technology, and for the last 16 years, I believe, she's been associated with Teekampagne. And what Teekampagne is, she would be talking to us about that. As her topic says, it's sustainability in practice. So without taking much more of her time, I welcome her to the stage.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I think it's a wonderful project you have started here, and I'm very happy that I may be here tonight, because I always find it very interesting to go back into university and to have a discussion with students, because that makes me reflect my daily work, because in practice I don't use much of the theories I was in contact with during my university time. So I always find it very refreshing to discuss what we do. My first question would be, who of you knows Teekampagne? Okay, a few tea drinkers, I see, okay. So you can correct me if I say something wrong, but for the rest, I would like to introduce the company I'm working for, because I think sustainability is really ingrained in our company's philosophy. And we were not even using that word because it was not in fashion back then when the company was founded. But I think I see a lot of things that fall under the topic of sustainability that for us is really daily life. Okay. Teekampagne was founded in 1985, and we were founded by a professor for economics, and not because he was a tea drinker, he still drinks coffee to this day, but because he wanted to have an example of entrepreneurship for students, because he's an economic teacher since early age, and he found it so boring to just teach about great theory. So he said, why not found a company? Why not show in practice you can have a different company? Because he calls it entrepreneurship, because the idea behind is not that you have the managers in dark suits who organize and run a company, but he was very much a fan of Schumpeter, the destruction, and having new innovative companies with a new approach and helping to solve the world's problems in an economic way. And that is why he wanted to find an example. And he was quite disappointed because he thought it's so exciting to found a company. So when he told his students, hey, you can witness how I will found a company, you can learn from practice, the first question they asked was, will I get a grade for this? So they didn't really realize how great it is to experience it firsthand to found a company. And why it was tea? It is, he was traveling around the world, having a lot of appointments in Asia, so he came to countries where tea was grown, and he found out tea is very cheap in the countries where it's originally from, but quite expensive when it's sold in Germany. So he did some research. Why is that? And is it because of long distances? No. Is it because of high insurance cost? No. Why is it? So he found out the average tea merchant who has a shop in High Street has like 200 varieties of tea, selling them in small packages. So he said, I will do it completely different. I will focus on one kind of tea, and according to the books on tea, Darjeeling is supposed to be the best tea in the world. And then I will not sell it in small packages, I will sell it in large packages, because you can store tea ideally in your own place. It's very easy to store, just a dry, dark, cool place, and that's it. It won't spoil, it won't rot, so very easy to manage and to handle. So he said, I will not have a shop, I will sell it directly to the consumer, I will not have a broad variety of different teas, and I will not sell it in small packages, because I can save a lot of packaging material if I just have large packages. And if I only focus on one tea, I will have a large order, and that will make it possible to buy directly from the producer. I don't need any middlemen, and this will save enormously on cost. So in the end, I will be able to sell a first-class product at a very cheap price comparative to the market. And that is exactly what he did. He calculated and found out I have to start with 2 tons of tea, but it was quite difficult in the beginning to find actually someone willing to sell him 2 tons of tea, because they were saying, who are you in tea business? You are a newcomer, you're a professor, how will that work? We don't really believe this will work, because all marketing books will tell you you have to make your product available throughout the year in every place. And he said, no, I will do it in a different way, because I know tea is only harvested at certain periods in the year. So even if you go to a tea shop every 6 weeks to buy a small package of tea, it will not be fresh tea. Because in Darjeeling you have first flush, that is the harvest in the spring, and then you will have second flush, that is the harvest in summer, which are the main harvest seasons. Afterwards you will have some autumnal teas, some green tea, some in-between teas also, but that's it. So why not train the customer to buy a yearly supply, because it's so easy to store tea. And all the tea merchants sitting in Hamburg and Bremen, they were really laughing and thinking that this can't work, it's a crazy idea. He will be eventually finished. But no, we are still here. And yes, and I also wanted to point out this new approach, having a high-class tea, sell it at a comparatively low price, will also involve paying a high price to the producer of the tea, because it's hard work and it's quite cost intensive because it's labor intensive. So why not pay a good price for high quality tea, save out all the costs in between because there are no middlemen, and then sell it at a good price to the consumer, because we don't want a large budget for marketing. We keep it very lean and small, organized. We are not greedy, we don't want a high profit, we don't need an increase in turnover each and every year. So we are quite reasonable. We calculate with a 5% margin, which is rather low. Why not create a win-win situation for the producers as well as for the consumers? And what was serving as a role model in this regard was Duttweiler's Mikro. When he founded Mikro, this big Swiss company, he started in the early 1920s, and he only had 6 items. And he drove through Switzerland with, I think it was margarine, sugar, flour, really basic products, and it was addressing the housewife who can calculate. Why would you pay a lot in a supermarket? You buy it in small packages, you will have to finance each and every middleman. He sold it directly, and now Mikro has changed a little bit, I think, but it's still in the market, and it's still, yeah, that was what was serving for him as an example, because our founder was also studying in St. Gallen, so I think that is why he was in close contact with Duttweiler's idea. So we started with 2 tons of Darjeeling tea. And today, not only since recent years, but I think in the last 10 years or so, we are the largest importer of Darjeeling tea in the world, according to the Tea Board of India. Now we buy around 420 tons of Darjeeling tea each year, and we are the largest mail order business for tea in Germany, and only with one tea. Now, if you look at our product range, it's not only first flush. That was what we were starting with. And now we have second flush as well. We have green tea as well. We have a tea we call all seasons, selected Darjeeling, because it's from various harvest periods. And since 2017, we even have Assam tea, because since many, many years, a lot of our customers were asking, why can you not take your business model to a new tea region? Why can you not provide us with Assam tea as well? I want to have some different flavors. Why not do Assam? And our company founder, he needs a little time to think and to digest and to think about the pros and cons. So it took a lot of years, but finally last year he decided, okay, we go to Assam as well, because there are some producers we work with since many, many years, and they also have Assam tea gardens, and they also do organic farming, so why not start with them? And that proved to be really the perfect timing, because I don't know if you followed media last year, there was a big strike in Darjeeling, politically motivated, and there was a stop of tea production. So there was not any second flush tea, nor green tea, and so we were very lucky that we had Assam tea, so that we can offer something to our customers. And also our Assam tea is a little bit different. It's produced in an orthodox way. That means it's not CTC tea, what you often find in Assam tea, when you have this very dark little pellets looking, but it's whole leaf tea, and so it's very special for Assam tea as well. But I will not talk too much on tea. Maybe if you're interested in finding out about tea production, I can tell you later. But now back to sustainability. The term sustainability, you must know far better than I do, is actually a term from forestry. So we are even in this place, the street is named after this gentleman who really came up with this idea. And if we talk nowadays about sustainability, we often refer to Grundland and to the idea that you shouldn't take more and make it not possible for future generations to have the same standard of living and the same access to resources as we have nowadays. So what is sustainability, how we understand it at Teekampagne? It's the combination of ecology, economy, and social aspects. So we try to find a way that they all can work hand in hand. Because, of course, if you just look at ecology, it would be probably the best if we stopped trading with tea at all. Because, of course, Darjeeling was not initially a place where tea grew naturally. It was introduced by the British around 150 years ago, and of course there was forest before, and now we have tea cultivation there. So for nature, probably it would be best if we just leave it and nature can recapture the soil and grow whatever grows there. But this is not really an option. So we must try to do it in a way that's ecologically friendly and also taking social aspects into consideration. So how do we do that? What's our approach? First, I was saying we pay a very good price for a good product. So our incentive was telling the producer, if you come up with a high quality product, you will also get a good price. We do not believe in dumping prices because we want to have long-term relationships with our producers. And this is not possible if you just pay them enough that they can barely cover their cost. So it has to be profitable for them in order to stay in business. So that is the first thing. Be fair towards the supplier as well as to the consumer. So what is quite unique, and I don't know any other company in Germany, at least in tea, who does it, we have a calculation of our price. It's a pre-calculation, and we give it out every year so that our customers have an idea how much do we pay for the tea in India, how much does it cost to package the tea, how much does it cost to let it go through all the laboratory analysis that it has to go through, how much does it cost to have it licensed, organic and Naturland, etc., so that they have a rough idea how the price is calculated. So I think that is also fair pricing towards the consumer. Then, as I was mentioning, long-term business relationships. We have producers we work with since over 20 years. So it's a business relation on eye level. It's not that we dictate them anything, and they don't try to play games with that either, because that wouldn't work. I mean, they can sell 1 year crappy tea at a good price, but it won't work the next year. So I think everyone sees the benefits of this, and this has also been very helpful when we were under fire regarding anthraquinone. That was the topic that went through media in 2014, when Stiftung Warentest and Ökotest, they suddenly tested tea for anthraquinone, and they found anthraquinone also in our tea. And that was a big problem because we had no clue where does it come from. Anthraquinone is used in paper production, and the BFR advised to take it out of production processes for paper that is in direct contact with food stuff. And so we had our papers analyzed. It was anthraquinone free. So we were really hit and really surprised that suddenly there was anthraquinone in the tea. And a few other tea merchants, they just said, oh, we won't bother. It will come and it will go, and media attention will focus on something else and people will forget it. But we said, no, that is not how we see it, because we had been pioneers when it came to pesticide residue analysis. When back in 1985, pesticide residues were really a problem in tea. And a lot of times tea, what was found was beyond the MIL. So some teas could not be bought. And what was bought, in each package, we showed the lab results. So other people might also have done lab results, but they just kept it in the drawer. They didn't want the customers to see. But we said, no, we communicated openly. We put it on the package, what's inside. So in 1985, you still had ethione and other pesticide residues. And nowadays, we have nothing, even though methods of detection have become much more refined. Pesticides are no longer really a problem in tea, at least when it comes to organic tea. But then we have this anthraquinone. And so we said, from our philosophy, it won't work like pretending we are an ostrich, just hiding the head in the sand and hope it will pass. We have to find out where does it come from. So we asked all our suppliers, let's sit at a round table and discuss what we can do. And that was quite unique because I don't know if it's in India and also in Germany, it's not very typical that you sit on the same table with your competitors. Because in the end, all our suppliers are competitors to each other. But we said, no, this is a problem we all face. We either drown together or we manage together. And we said, managing is far better option, so let's do something. And then everyone contributed some money to set up an own study. And we had a food chemist and we went to Darjeeling and we collected 500 samples, various samples, leaf samples, soil samples, root samples, samples of each and every step in the production, air samples, and with all this that went through lab results and studies, we could prove that anthraquinone is not a pesticide, even though EU regulation treats it as a pesticide, but it's a contaminant. And this food chemist, she presented in front of EFSA the findings of the study. Along, we joined forces with the European Tea Association. And for the first time, the EFSA people were really listening and saying, yeah, now we see you have data, you can prove it's a contaminant. But still, bad luck for you, we still keep it in the pesticide catalog. Because only every 10 years, the pesticides are under scrutinization if the MRL should be changed or if everything should be left as it was. So anthraquinone is only due in the next 8 years again. So even though everyone knows it's a contaminant nowadays, it's still in the pesticide catalog and treated as if it's a pesticide. MRL is not changed. But at least we knew where it comes from. Because when you have polyaromatic carbon, I don't know the English word right now, PAC, polyaromatische Kohlenwasserstoffe. I'm sorry, but whenever you burn organic material and it's not completely burnt, you have that stuff. And then you also have anthraquinone in everything that is smoke, in every volcano that erupts, in every forest fire. And tea has tiny hairs on top, and so they just grab onto this stuff. And then in the production process, you have a dried process, so it intensifies and the concentration becomes higher and it becomes detectable. So we know now whenever it's very dry, you have the tendency of having higher IQ contamination. So you must get rid of dust in the production process. So we encouraged our producers and asked them to invest quite a lot of money to switch from coal to LPG in their production process to get rid of dust. And that really helps in a lot of cases to be below the MRL for anthraquinone. So I think this is how we see it. If a problem arises, we shouldn't hide, we should find out where it comes from and deal with it. So coming back to our sustainability approach, we don't use our own logo. Instead, we use the logo for Darjeeling tea that's been given out by the Tea Board of India, because there's a lot of adulteration of Darjeeling tea. Everyone knows Darjeeling. It has a certain nimbus and people are willing to pay quite a lot of money for Darjeeling tea. So of course it becomes interesting for people who cheat and who sell cheaper tea as Darjeeling tea. And according to the Tea Board of India, they calculate around 40,000 tons of Darjeeling tea are sold around the world, wherever in this region only below 10,000 tons can be produced. So we said we have to enforce the pure product and we just don't use our own logo, but we try to give a broader market approach to the Darjeeling logo. Because that will benefit in the end everyone who's working in tea in Darjeeling. Because if you see Darjeeling, it's very steep hills and it's all hand production. You cannot pluck mechanically, you have to pluck by hand. And it's so unfair if they give all the effort and they don't get the market price they should, because if the demand is higher than the supply and you have adulterated product, of course the market price will go down. So it hurts in the end all the producers in Darjeeling. We are also the first company to sign a license agreement with the Tea Board of India. We disclose what we buy as Darjeeling tea, and we also disclose what we sell as Darjeeling tea, because there's no sudden increasing of Darjeeling tea in the market from our side. And for the customers, we also have traceability. If you look on the back side of each package, there's a little lot number, and on our internet pages you can type in those lot numbers, and then you see the blend list of the tea, you see when it has been shipped, you see all the lab results, so that you can know you buy the pure and the genuine Darjeeling tea. And now, of course, same applies for Assam as well, because it's also a protected geographically indication. So as I already was mentioning, we disclosed the price calculation to be fair on every side. And what is special, since we were founded by a professor, he was not in need to support a big family with his earnings and incomes from Teekampagne. So he's in the lucky position that the little profits we make, he doesn't use for personal consumption, but he had started a foundation, because entrepreneurship is really the topic he's burning for, and he wants to encourage people to found their own companies, to do business in a different manner, and to use economy to solve some of the world's problems. Yeah, I was mentioning before, we save packaging material, transportation, because the tea, the head office sits in Potsdam nowadays, but the tea is not stored there. We have partner companies we work with. They put the tea in packages, and they also sell out the parcels. What we have in Potsdam is really customer service. We don't have a call center. We don't believe in call centers, because we noticed it's really a USP to have customer service with real people who know the product and who have been in Darjeeling and who can tell firsthand how it looks in Darjeeling, how people work in Darjeeling. And that is, sometimes they say people are really surprised. They really ask 2 times, is that really someone from Teekampagne and not a call center? And I think that is something we would not give out of hand and outsource. But outsourcing of storing and packaging of parcels, that makes sense, because we have high peak seasons and we have low seasons when we don't have that much of parcels to be shipped out. And if we would have all the infrastructure by ourselves, we would need to make sure that the machinery and everything keeps going. So it's much better to have someone who specializes in that. Because that's also what our founder always promotes. Don't do everything by yourself if you start a company. Do it in components, focus on the things you like to do and you're good at, and don't try to do everything. You don't need to be an accountant if you don't like to deal with that topic. Rather work on your business idea and not in accounting if that's not what you're burning for. Since 2011, we have completely switched to organic tea. We didn't start with organic right away because there was not that much organic tea available back in 1985, and slowly then organic picked up, and there were a lot of black sheep in the market who said it's organic even though it wasn't. So we were very hesitant. We already had even Demeter certified teas, but we just sold them off as conventional because we wanted to be cautious and not risk selling tea as organic, which is not really properly organic. But we encourage the producers to go for organic farming. And what's good in Darjeeling, because of the high altitude, you don't have that much of pests. So it's much easier in Darjeeling to do organic farming than, for example, in Assam, where you have tropical climate, a lot of heat and moisture, and that makes it far more difficult to have organic tea in Assam. And therefore, Darjeeling tea nowadays, around 70% are under organic agriculture, whereas in Assam, it's not even 2%. But then, of course, you must also take into consideration Assam is the largest tea growing region in the world, whereas Darjeeling is comparatively small. It's only 87 tea gardens in Darjeeling. So, and slowly we could increase our buying quantity of organic tea because the conversion process takes some years. So we didn't tell our producers next year we want organic, because we know it takes 3 to 5 years to convert a garden into organic. So we were following up that process, and thereby we will only be able to increase our organic tea slowly. Then we have also some teas which are additionally mark not only organic but Naturland. The advantage of Naturland is that they are a little bit stricter than EU organic regulations, plus they also take some social aspects into account. So we find that is a good way. And not only because we want to do something good for the region, but also from an economically point of view, it makes sense to ensure that your resources will still be there tomorrow and in 20 years. And deforestation is quite a big problem in hilly areas because with every rainfall, the topsoil will be washed away, and that will create problems in the long run. So reforestation is really the only way if you want to do something and to protect the topsoil. And that is why we started a reforestation project in 2002. And that project is called Save the Environment and Regenerate Vital Employment, short SERV. And it's now, since 1996, it's organized by WWF India, which is very convenient for us because it falls under one of the landscape programs within WWF. So we can make use of their infrastructure because they say this is a region where we want to do something because it's on the slopes of the Himalayas, and this is a very hotspot regarding water supply and also nature, and therefore it is a win-win situation for us that we have WWF there with us on this project, even though we are the sole financiers of this project until today. And it's not only reforestation, it started with reforestation, but the good thing was it was planned originally that the project would provide seedlings. People could grow seedlings for 18 months, then the project would buy the seedlings back and plant them. But then the seedlings got stolen, and every little tree got a white mark. So then we saw, oh, there, all our trees are standing there, we can identify them. And it was not necessarily anymore that the project brought back the little saplings, but the tea garden owners were very interested in having shade trees and also little spot patches of rainforest. So they started buying those saplings, so that was very good because then the money of the project could be used for other activities. So nowadays it's not just reforestation, but apiary, for example, manufacturing of biobriquettes, and awareness programs in schools, funding of nature clubs, and teaching techniques of rainwater catchment. So various topics that all make the living in this region a little bit better. And of course, when it comes to our office, we also we once did a carbon dioxide. What's the name of this? We did a study on how we can make our office life a little bit more sustainable, and so that is why we switched to climate neutral printing. Whenever we give out printing material, we make sure we use the proper paper. We switched and have a eco-friendly electricity provider. So little things we can also do in our daily lives to lessen our impact on the climate. But we also were partners in a study by the Technical University of Darmstadt when they did a study on carbon dioxide footprints of various products. And what was very interesting, they also did it with our tea. They made a comparison, ship-freighted and air-freighted tea, organic tea and conventionally grown tea. But the largest impact, really by far, is how you boil the water for your tea. What kind of method do you use? Do you use a water cooker? Do you use a pot? What kind of electricity supplier do you have? So that was really very interesting for us to find out. We can do, of course, organic is better, shipping is better than air freight, but still in the end the consumer decides a lot of of the social, of the impact.
What was the most efficient way to heat the water?
The best is if you use a kettle or water cooker and only use as much water as you need. So that's the best. And of course, if you have if you don't have a brown coal provider of electricity, but that is really the best. And yeah, to close it off, my little talk on sustainability in practice on the example of Teekampagne, I want to show you some pictures. This first picture, there you see the leftovers of a huge landslide in Darjeeling that took place in 1968, and it was the largest landslide in Asia. And that shows how important it is to conserve the topsoil and to do something to reforest areas. And this is how it looks where the saplings are grown. So there are really families who get their main income just from tree nurseries nowadays. And then you can see how the project organizes in June. Usually is the best time of the year to plant the saplings. So they have nature clubs and they make it a community event to plant all the trees. And it really takes a lot of effort to make the trees grow, because at first you need to clear the patches of land where you want to have the saplings, and then you have to monitor them for about 3 years to see how the survival rate is before you can leave it off to itself and grow into a little forest. And we are also, there's a very scenic spot that's called the Batasia Loop, where the little toy train, which is a World Heritage object, takes a tour, and there our project planted medicinal plants that are indigenous to Darjeeling to make people aware of the treasures they have, and also teach how vermicomposting functions, so that people, have an access to how they can farm and what kind of nature abundance they have. And there you see also the apiary, where our project provides all the equipment and teaches people how to make honey. And what's not used for personal consumption is sold in local markets, so it's also additional income. And there you see biobriquettes, which have the advantage they don't produce a lot of smoke when they burn, so it's a very good alternative to wood. Because you cannot just tell people stop cutting wood and use it as firewood. You must show them an alternative. And this also sells good in the local market.
What is that again? Sorry? It's called
biobriquettes. You have green material, you burn it, and then you mix it with sand and water and have a mulchy thing, and then you press it and then you dry it. I saw this in a documentary. It's also a method used in Africa. It's probably pretty common. And there you see the steep hills of Darjeeling, where our tea comes from. So you really see it's hand production, and you need 15,000 of 2 leaves and a bud, what is ending up in your tea for just 1 kg of tea. So tea tempers the spirits, harmonizes the mind, dispels lassitude and relieves fatigue, awakens thought and prevents drowsiness, lightens or refreshes the body and clears the perceptive faculties. That was a saying by Confucius. So I think tea really is the ideal drink for students. And having talked so much about tea, I also have a few samples of our tea. Assam tea and the green tea from Darjeeling, and also a Earl Grey we have. So I invite you to take some of the samples with you, and also if you're interested to find out a little bit about our philosophy. Yes, and I thank you.
For having me. First off, I have to insist that Inca's time doesn't count.
I know. It's your chocolate.
It will be expensive. Secondly, my previous speaker was brilliant in timing. I can promise you I'm lousy in timing. So we could talk about that for 2 days, weeks, month if you want to. So you will have to stop me. And I think part of the interesting stuff will also come in the questions. However, there's enough material for hours. Who's from Hong Kong? Ah, here we go. You're from Hong Kong? Ah, very good, very good. My wife is from Hong Kong, so I know what it means to have a Chinese government, and it's usually wonderful, not always a pleasure. We can talk about that a little later. And the Chinese guys among you, do you know who Confucius is? You cannot, because actually we call him that, and he's Kongzi.
Yeah, he's Kongzi.
But I'm not Chinese, I'm Taiwanese.
Oh, that's completely different. Oh, that's a completely different mindset. Now, Kongzi said a lot about tea, but not a lot about sustainability, so we have to do that. There's a little agenda. We will give you a little overview of who we are. We talk about sustainability and business. That's a topic in itself that could take ages. Then I would like to give you a little case to show you how developed sustainability in business can be. And then afterwards we'll just go into the Q&A. So who we are, you can see here. This is us. I've been actually working for 25 years in the field of sustainability consultancy. It wasn't called like that when I started working in 1992 for KPMG and for PricewaterhouseCoopers, only to find out it does not really make sense to work with the big guys, because actually you have to tell your customers, you have to stop doing what you do and you have to do it differently, and the big consultancies don't like to do that. So now we are actually 3 consultancies, and we are around 60 people now who do nothing else but working with sustainability. And the customers who work with us, they know it's painful, because sustainability actually is painful, because it is a lot of messages that no one of us wants to hear, and we are much too slow. So we have to speed up, but the good news is there's more and more people in the organizations who believe in what they're doing, and our task is to support them and to work with them who either are serious in sustainability or who have the potential to have a big impact. And we have a couple of companies that we work with. I don't want to go in all the detail, but we work with consultancies, but also with NGOs, and a consultancy in India, for example, that we're very fond of. This I will just skip. I just want to show you that there is a wide range of customers that we work for. Sometimes we don't like to put on companies like that, Volkswagen. We insist on the fact that we have been working for Volkswagen Group starting September 2015, so when the diesel crisis erupted, so to say. But on the other hand, a company like Volkswagen, if they do things seriously, then things move, and they invest now more than 40 billion euro in electric powertrains and electric cars, and the electric car that will come out next year will be carbon neutral. So if you had asked them 5 years ago, they would have said this will never ever happen. Another thing that works very interestingly and well is not the usual suspects. Look at a company like Lidl. No one would associate Lidl with sustainability, no one. But actually the interesting thing is the founder of Lidl has turned around in the recent years, and we're doing strategy projects for them, and we are really surprised how fast those people take things forward. And if Lidl decides to put fair trade bananas into their assortment and nothing else, that changes the market. So it is always a question of, do you really work only with those who are 100% dedicated, or do you work with those who have an impact and change them around? That is the core question that we always have to ask ourselves. Well, I won't talk a lot about sustainability because you're the experts here, and just a couple of things. I mean, if you understand this picture, that's all that you actually need from a systems perspective. Because what does it mean? We live on a limited planet, and the only thing that is there in abundance is energy. So in the long run, climate change will not be our biggest problem. Because climate change is just a question of being solved on an economic level. Because technically, we have everything we need. We have renewable energies, we have carbon capture and storage, we have chemical processes that can take CO2 out of the atmosphere and make wonderful products out of it. But we have other problems that are much more dire, and we will go into that a little later. But what actually, if we stay at 1804 with 1 billion people, we could probably, everyone have a life like people in Saudi Arabia or Qatar, and we could still get along. The issue is we need to have decent lives by the end of the century for 11 or 11.5 billion people. And that is something that is not feasible, just like the funky people out of Silicon Valley want to tell us, like Elon Musk's of this world, we just have to apply technology and everything will be solved. No, this will not work. A lot of it will be changing our lifestyles, and a lot of it will be that people who come from countries that don't enjoy a lifestyle like the US or Germany in the moment will not follow our path, because it will not work. And I think we need to be very serious about that. Now, what I was talking about, and you probably know that much better than I know, but you know Rockström's planetary boundaries, and if we look at the different issues, we see that climate change is actually an issue that is still in the yellow area, and that biosphere integrity, that nitrogen and phosphorus flows are much worse. But nobody talks about those. And everybody's talking about climate change at the moment. I'm not saying that climate change is not an issue, and I'm not saying that it's solved yet, but it is solvable. But if any one of you can explain to me how we will tackle nitrogen flows, I have no idea. So this, I will not go into detail. We had talk last week from Johan Rockström from the Stockholm Resilience Center and now the Potsdam Institute for Climate, and he gave an update about his studies, and actually he said the tipping points are coming closer. We can feel the tipping points now. For example, if you look at a map of the planet, you can see if there is a color code for more than average temperature, everything is red and the rest will be blue. So what we're used to is everything is yellow or red. Well, there's a spot in the North Atlantic that is blue. What on earth is that? So temperatures are getting lower. That means that the Gulf Stream is getting weaker. Have fun. I mean, this is not going to be funny. So companies have always answered to those issues in some way or another, and this is agreeable, a very Germanistic approach, but you can, from the timeline, but you can translate that to other parts of the world as well. And I want to explain that to you, because if there's nothing that you take away from today, I think this is the most important. Now, the role of companies in society has changed dramatically over the years. And you can still identify when companies looked at the first time at their role in society, and you will find that their mindset quite often is still stuck in when they started to do that. And a lot of companies, and especially if you look regionally in the US, the role of a company is giving back, citizenship, sponsoring. There is no other role of a company than, we give a little bit back to kindergartens and stuff like that. This is still what they do. The next level, and as I said, the timeline here is looking at Germany, but if you look at China, you can find those levels as well, but on a different timeline. The second level was legal compliance. If you like lifestyle in Freising, probably you enjoy clean air, but this has not always been the case. So why was there legal compliance issues, like why was there emission laws and water treatment laws in Germany? Because you couldn't breathe the air and you couldn't drink the water, as simple as that. Now we have exported all that production to Asia, and now we have the same problems in Asia, and it is no wonder that the Chinese government is adopting a 100% complete copy of the German Emissionsschutzgesetz, the emissions law, in order to do the same. Because how can you make a people happy if they cannot breathe the air? It will not happen, even if they are very rich. The next level was, in the 90s, environmental management systems. So you have companies that look at environmental management systems, but the scope was still very much site-oriented. So they were only taking responsibility for their sites. And the next level that most companies are in is what we call unspecific CSR, corporate social responsibility. And you probably have heard about the GRI. The GRI is a reporting standard that looks at 200 different criteria. And what happens is that you have CSR departments who, instead of focusing on the real issues, they are focusing on 200 different issues that somebody defined are relevant for companies today. That leads to the fact that they have less impact rather than more impact. The next phase that we see, and a lot of companies are in that we call specific CSR or materiality. So we look at the issues that are most important. Now, if I ask you, Coca-Cola, what's the issue? What's the sustainability issue of Coca-Cola?
Sugar.
Everybody wrong, you're right. Just joking. Actually, the problem of Coca-Cola is fat children. Because the issue of water has been a regional issue, I agree completely. There is also an issue of climate change, etc. But Coca-Cola is facing all the issues, like water and like climate change, but not the issue of fat children. Why? Because it is a question of their product, and they don't want to sell less product. And unless you really go into your product, you have a big problem, because society will not accept it. The next level then is companies that adopt sustainability as issue in their core business. And a company like Volkswagen that is hit straight in the face with an environmental issue, they have to move from selling cars to providing sustainable mobility. But that is a gigantic step for them. And that is something that will take ages. So that's why we need more and more consultants, because changing their mindsets is something that will probably not stop. And the next level is sustainability as a business model. And there it gets interesting. So 4 and 5 have an overlapping bit, but 5 actually means you set up a company, a startup, to solve a societal problem. And of course, you need to make some money to innovate and to pay your people. But this is not the purpose of a business. Where on earth are we living that a purpose of a business is to maximize profit? What is that? What kind of goal is that? That's absolutely ridiculous. So we only had that in the past 30 years. It had never been there before. Before it was always we have to fulfill purpose in society. And actually what is funny, if you talk with people inside of businesses, you can find where did they start. So those environmental management guys of Volkswagen, they still said, wow, our production sites are fantastic, and they are. Their environmental programs of their production sites are brilliant. But they were hit in the face about a non-compliance in the use phase. What's the problem? We sold the car, it's a good car. It's not our responsibility, we're not driving the car. And you can find that with individuals, but also with companies, that they're quite often stuck in the moment when they have to go. And I don't want to, I was wondering how could I present this slide without insulting you, but I will try not to. Because actually, if you had shown me your slides without the year, I would have said 1980, 1987, something like that, when you were founded. And I will explain to you why.
But you were right.
Yeah, exactly. But it has moved on. And, you know, this is the old story of environment, society, and economy. And then there was a scientist who said, well, we need to overlap those. And the scientist who developed that said last year, this was the stupidest idea that I've ever had. Why? Because actually the idea behind is completely correct. But it shows, and this is supposed to be sustainable, but it's like a story of, yeah, you know, we just have to arrange things and everything will be fine. But this is not the case, because what companies actually did is they didn't really use that model, because what they made out of that is what we call the Mickey Mouse model. Because the business of business is business is business is business is business, and the environment is just there to serve our purposes, and society is just there to buy our products. This is how it has developed, and you can find environmental reports and sustainability reports by the million that actually work on that model. But as sustainability specialists, you can surely agree this is reality. The natural environment is what everything is based on and nothing else. And we can have successful economic endeavors if we destroy our societal and our environmental framework. There will be no economy. And there has been, by the way, depending on who you ask, between 16 and 20 cultures in the past that have decided to ignore environmental changes and that have vanished. They are not here anymore. Talk about the Easter Islanders, for example. They have made the decision, no, we will build those big statues instead of protecting our forests. Here they go. And the companies are there. And in the moment, what we have is companies pretend they are the heroes and society is just there to serve their purposes. No, this is not the way it is. So how does sustainability work for companies? Actually, it's very important, and that's why we tell our customers, don't say you're sustainable. Don't say your products are sustainable, because that's utterly ridiculous. If you have a brilliant tea today, and you improve the process and you have less water, and you say today your tea is sustainable, what is it when you have improved the water consumption? Is it now sustainabler, or what is it? No, it is not. As such, it is not. So we have sustainability is something that is too precious for all of us, for all humanity, to be really used by companies. We talk about sustainable development, as you rightly said, Brundtland definition, but sustainable development is challenged by global challenges. And what we see is there's several mechanisms that work on companies. And actually the right-hand mechanism is relatively simple. It's markets and legislation. So if you have markets and you don't fulfill your customer needs, you're out. If you don't fulfill your legislation, in many parts of the world you're out. In other parts of the world you're even more successful. But this is the classic way. But there has been a new way of pressure on companies because this is not quick enough. And that is stakeholder expectations. And stakeholders could be your employees, for example. And that is something that's very encouraging for us. The biggest pressure on Volkswagen doesn't come from the customer, not from politicians. It comes from their own employees because they are fed up and they want their company to be responsible. So you have different mechanisms that work on expectations, and what you do is you contribute to that. You try to tackle the challenge or at least minimize the risk. And this is what we call CR or CSR, doesn't matter. And we try not to call it sustainability because it is not. It is just a contribution. Why do we need that? I think you're very well aware of that. We have been very successful in the past 100 years to improve living conditions almost everywhere. Today, for the first time in history, there is more people who have a problem with obesity than people who are starving. I mean, it is funny to say this is a success, but I think it is on a global level. And there's hundreds and hundreds of indicators that show things are getting better. This is not wrong. And if you work on sustainability, you don't have to say everything is getting worse, because it is not. A lot of things have been gotten better, but now we have never looked at the consequences of our consumption patterns. And what happens now, what we see, what science tells us, that there is an equal amount of graphs that show that the planet is coming to its limits. So we have CO2 in the atmosphere, we have ocean acidification, deforestation, whatever you name it. We have so many natural systems that come to their limits that we cannot go on like that. So we have two conflicting developments, and actually we need to find a way to get in some kind of funnel that simply provides our future. And there's a very interesting, we'll come back to that a little later, there's a very interesting way of looking at it. So what is this funnel? And actually it is the global goals. It is the SDGs, the 17 goals that 195 nations have set themselves. And you can say, well, they're conflicting, they're for nation states, whatever, I don't care. Because this is the best we have. This is the only framework we have, so we better use it and make it better if we think it needs to be better. So what does that mean for corporations? Well, you have this red unsustainable space there. Actually, the red unsustainable space changes. What societies think is unsustainable changes. Well, coal-fired power plants were completely fine 30 years ago. And now we understand, will not work with climate change. So, if you look at a company like RWE, that's the largest CO2 emitter in Europe, they had different choices once they found out, and we have been there on the table doing a materiality analysis in 2004 when they discovered, oh my God, our core process consists of burning fossil fuels and producing CO2. That was in 2004. And then they said, yeah, but it's the same for our competitors, so we don't care. So what is their option? They could still focus on coal and fossil fuel, and they will be out, and this is actually what happened. The other alternative would be to go 100% renewable, and they would be out economically, at least at that time. Now, they have to find a way, and this is what companies have to do today, find a way to transport their business model into the future. And that means it changes. If you look at a different example, that is Tesla. I'm not arguing that Tesla builds good cars, but they have understood one thing, and that is the future of the car will be electric in terms of electric powertrain. That has nothing to do with a battery electric car, the electric powertrain. And Tesla said, well, we start from a point that is out of the economic operating space. We will lose money every day, but we prepare ourselves for a future when only electric cars will be the thing that we use. So it's a different strategic mindset, and of course you can only do that with a startup. If you have a large corporation, you will need to find a way to stay in the same economic operating space, because otherwise you will have to fire your people. That's not funny. So there's different, you know those SDGs, I'm a big fan. You know Paris, you know that Katowice is going on. And you know, if you look at the Paris Agreement, people say, well, that's not successful. I beg to disagree. Because actually, all the scientists said before, probably there will be an agreement of 2.5, maybe 2 degrees. Actually, the agreement was 1.5 degrees. What does it tell us? When 195 politicians come together and overachieve their commitments, what does that mean? It is more serious than we ever thought. That does it mean. So if we talk about Katowice now, that's a very important step forward. And I will skip that. And I just want to show you how we try to change mindsets. Quite often when we work inside of companies, you know, we work with individuals and not with companies. And one way is to look at a person of a company, not only as part of a company, but we talk to them as part of society. And the interesting thing is that most people who work in large corporations, they think privately, this is not going to go on forever, and I want things to change because for my children I want a better world. But as part of a company, they still go on for it. And we try to change that. And we try, for example, with this picture. You know, if you talk to a business person and tell them, look at that. This is your company. This is the company you're running. So you have a red line here, and if you are below the red line, you're in deep trouble. Now, for example, working capital, oh, unsafe area. Your cash flow, you're almost bankrupt. Your investment ratio, very, very low. And your customer satisfaction, you don't even know. So how do you feel about your company? And most people will say, oh my God, I will probably sell it or get out of it as soon as I can. And then we say, well, listen, this is our company. Because actually, those are the planetary boundaries. This is the dashboard of our planet. This is where we are. So we're not in a good position. And if you look at where all those issues are going, practically all of them are going into the wrong direction. But there is one thing that gives us hope, because there was ozone depletion. And world society said, against economic interests, this will not go on forever, so we will ban the substances that produce ozone depletion. And that is a success. The ozone hole is closing again, except my friends from China are now starting to produce those things again, so the ozone hole is opening again. Not fun. And you know, it's interesting that people say sustainability doesn't have to do anything with us. Well, what Volkswagen has experienced is a sustainability crisis, because they have created emissions unlawfully that people don't accept anymore. So this is an environmental crisis. And if you think it is not, if you have your if you cut your stock price by 50%, is that a crisis or not a crisis? I don't know. And I want to show you how different mindsets actually produce those issues. Well, you know, the target of Volkswagen was to be the biggest car manufacturer in the world. That was their target. And then they looked at what other competitors were doing. Oh, somebody's doing electric powertrain. Why do they do that? Somebody's doing hybrid. Oh, that's a minor solution. Or even hydrogen. That's completely ridiculous. So if your target is to be the biggest automotive manufacturer in the world, that seems like complete bullshit. Now there's another automotive car manufacturer who has understood 20 years ago that burning fossil fuels in cars is unsustainable. It will not be there in the long run. And they asked, what is the alternative? And only to find out there is not one alternative, but there is different alternatives. There could be power to gas, there could be a fuel cell, there could be electric energy, whatever it is. And they said, well, is there any way that we can construct cars in a way that they can use different kinds of energy? They found out, yes, it's the electric car. It's the electric powertrain, because it can use a combustion engine to fuel the electric energy, to fuel the car. It can use a fuel cell, anything you want. So they said, our target is a fossil-free mobility for a long-term success. And then they said, the electric powertrain, that is the solution. And since we cannot go to 100% fossil-free, we'll start with a hybrid. And we'll move to hydrogen technology, the fuel cell. So this is actually Toyota. And Toyota, like Volkswagen, is still selling SUVs. But they do that because they have to be in the safe economic operating space, but they understand where they have to go. So this is why Toyota's strategy is much more successful than Volkswagen's strategy. And if you look from an economist's perspective, you can look at different cycles of innovation in the past, like railway, steel, electrification, petrochemicals, IT, and those were the past innovation developments. Now we find ourselves in a time where all of a sudden the energy system is completely changed. We find that in mobility and food things are changing dramatically. And people always say this is just due to digitization. I beg to disagree. Because actually it is due to unsustainability. People see that those solutions that we have there will not work in the future. This is why we need to change them. Digitization is just another thing that makes things quicker, but it's not the actual reason. And if you look at companies, how they look at the world today, and you imagine a company being a surfer, then actually they look at this huge wave of digitization that is disrupting their processes. But since the wave of digitization is too close to them, they don't see the much bigger wave that is lurking behind the digitization wave, and that is sustainable development. So if you look at Airbnb, for example, wonderful case of digitization. Airbnb was founded with the wonderful picture of sharing economy. Actually, it was founded to make its founders rich. And it led to the fact that in many cities of the world, Airbnb is not allowed anymore because people were buying apartments and renting them out, making space in places like Hong Kong unaffordable for anyone else. Well, this is not what we wanted, and this is not sustainable. So digitization without sustainability will crash dramatically. I just want to go into a quick case to show you one company example that we have had the pleasure of accompanying for the past 3 years. And it's a company called Leuphana. That's actually a startup, but it was founded by 2 large companies, that is Evonik and DSM. We've been working for Evonik since 2008, and they have some parts of their business now where they look at unsustainability in the value chain and then say, well, we need to find a solution for that and we will contribute to that. And what they do is, in this example, they produce omega-3 fatty acids. Oh my God, what is that? From algae. I will explain it to you. Why do they do that? Because we will need protein for future generations. We will need protein to feed people. Not everything will be vegetarian. And one important protein source is fish. And since there's tremendous overfishing, aquaculture will be one of the most important sources of protein. If you buy 1 kilogram of salmon, what do you think? How much fish had to be caught in order to feed that 1 kilogram of salmon?
17.
That's very pessimistic. It is 6, but still it's completely absurd. You catch 6 times the amount of fish that actually comes out of it. And people tell you stories about, yeah, it's fish waste. Rubbish. Off the coast of Chile, there is a complete fleet that does nothing but catching fish for salmon aquaculture. It's completely ridiculous. So if people knew that, they would probably reduce their consumption and stop buying. And what those guys do is really smart. This is the classical chain. So those algae produce the omega-3 fatty acids, and actually they're accumulated along the chain. Then you fish this amount of fish, you compress it to fish oil, and you feed that fish oil to the salmon. So what those guys do is you have fish oil that is needed, and those omega-3 fatty acids are actually what the salmon needs. And what they do is they have changed the metabolism, not genetically, of algae, and they produce those omega-3 fatty acids directly and feed it to the salmon. We presented that solution before it was market ready to the WWF, and they said, wow, where can we sign? We do anything to support you. But it's not that easy, because what we find is, this is what I was saying before, we need aquaculture in the future to meet those demands. And actually what has been happening is, and this is something that you really need to understand, in a value chain like that, where Evonik and DSM are, so producing components for feed, they are B2B to B to B to B to B to B to B to C. So they're very far away. And what actually happens to change those value chains is unsustainability. What is the unsustainability in the salmon chain? It is overfishing. There's no CO2. Well, there's CO2, but it's not the issue. Overfishing is the big issue, because if we overfish, we're in deep trouble. So what these guys found, and that was very funny, that the usual process is they talk to the feed producer, and the feed producer says, I don't care. Overfishing is not my problem. And the farmer says, I don't care, I sell salmon. And the processor says, I don't care. What is changing now? The retailer is getting a little worried because he knows he has a problem. The end consumer, I wouldn't say he doesn't care, but he doesn't know. And this is another thing that we need to keep in mind. A lot of companies today say, well, we listen to our customer. Well, where did that bring us? If we keep listening to uninformed customers, we will destroy that planet. So we need retailers, we need companies to take responsibility for the effects of the consumption that we all have. Because if you have uninformed people, it comes to things like President Trump or Brexit. And the same goes for consumption. We cannot listen to uninformed mainstream. This will not work. We have to do more than that. So, what we did, I don't want to go into the very detail, but the solution to that was the feed producer said we don't care because nobody's caring. So we will not pay a cent more than normal fish oil. The interesting thing is we brought together the entire value chain, and all of a sudden you have retailers who say, oh, is that the case? We're interested. We want a solution to that problem. So all of a sudden the retailers talked to the processors and said, do you have a solution? The processor said, there is no solution. And the retailer says, oh yes, there's a solution. We know about a solution. Well, can you try it? And so this is how things change, because what we do traditionally in classical value chains, there is a salesperson that talks to a buyer of the next company. And if they don't have the big picture, all they will argue about is price. The problems that we have created can never be solved at the same level of thinking we have created it at. So we need to look at it from a systems perspective, larger. We need to look at an entire value chain and understand what is going wrong here. Because not a single company can change the value chain. It has to be everybody, and at the end, final consumers have to agree with that. So actually what comes out of it is, from a classical supply chain, it becomes more like a supply circle where those companies talk together. And actually, you're in the very lucky position that you have a supply chain that is the way you do it. It is really simple to look at. And there are very few steps. The way your competitors do it is very complex, so they cannot change anything. So you're in a brilliant position. You have a brilliant approach, and you're in a brilliant position, but also responsibility to change things. So if you look at that, if you look at it deeper, you find, wow, it is not only one supply chain and one supply circle, but oh my God, this looks like nature. It is tons and tons and tons and tons of circles that all influence each other. So there is no simple answers, and that is probably the biggest challenge for sustainability in the future. That is, sustainability poses difficult questions with difficult answers, and people today don't want to hear that. Well, that's a choice. So I will just skip that. But sustainability cannot be thought in boxes, not only across supply chain. We need to think what is actually benefiting society and what does society need. And then try to look at a network approach, and then let everybody, as I said before, the salesperson is talking to the buyer. They're looking each other in the eye, and they're playing this German administration game that says whoever moves first loses. Or they look at each other in terms of prices. Yeah, but you have to pay. No, you have to make the price lower. But what we do is, if we look at those circles and we look at the unsustainability that is there, then all of a sudden all of them understand, hey, our problem is not the prices. Our problem is overfishing. And we need to do something about it. And it changes the psychology of this game entirely. If you don't look at each other who moves first, but if you look at the problem and say, okay, this will change. What else? Well, look, the ways of cooperation, you can read that itself, this implications. Inside companies, companies need to understand and change, and so therefore, we believe that the biggest single thing that is needed inside corporations is what we call mindset change. And because the solutions are there everywhere. It is almost surprising how many solutions are there. But people think we have always built cars. So how can we provide mobility? We have always been a provider of energy. We will not be so stupid to provide energy efficiency solutions, because that means we will sell less energy. Those are the classical mindsets, and those mindsets will run us into deep, deep trouble. And this is why we try to work with individuals, with people, because in every company, even the worst company, you find people who are convinced that sustainability is needed and who want to change their company around. And what we need to do is we need to empower. So we try to influence mindsets and enable multipliers, and a lot of that is training, for example. I showed you Kaufland. Kaufland is a very, very amazing company who have 3 or 4 years ago, like every retailer, they said, it is not our responsibility. We just provide a nice shop, and the responsibility is the customers to pick the right products. Now, we had a meeting with their management board, and they said afterwards, actually, you know, we just did the meeting with you because our sustainability guy, he was not letting go. He was asking us, have a meeting, have a meeting. So we said, okay. And then what we did in there is we did a little trivia game. So we asked them, what is the price of a kilogram of beef? And you know, you've got all those fantastic retail people, and they were arguing, is it 1 cent more or 1 cent less? And if I get it there, it's half a cent more. They were like experts all the way. And then we asked them, and how many liters of water are needed to produce 1 kilogram of beef? And they were like, half a liter, 2 liters, 10 liters. Somebody said 400 liters. And then we said, no, guys, it is 16,000 liters. And this was the winning moment for those guys, because they said afterwards, we have a lot of tsunamis in our shelves. And we're lucky that they are not hitting us yet, but they will in the future, so we better prepare. So what we need to do is mindset change, and this is our responsibility. It is our responsibility to let people look at the role of business, companies, and society and sustainability differently, because there is no alternative. Everything that economy works on, is it money, interest rates, or everything else, is fiction. It is something that we believe in. But the laws of thermodynamics are not fiction. You cannot buy them. You cannot change them. They are just there. So we will need to let people understand we're part of nature, and if we don't behave, nature will kick us out. Now, there is this wonderful word of sustainability, and there has been a very nice study. You know that Google, you can look at how the trend of a word is. And actually, the first company I founded is called Sustainable. And I found that very smart in 1997 when I looked for the website. And I thought, this is really something special. And when we renamed, we found that actually this is a word that's so misused, it is so straight in the face that it doesn't really say anything anymore. So there was this Google analysis, and you can say, if you look at a year and you have the scale of how often is the word used in publications, how often does the word sustainable appear in publications? So in the year 2010, we are at around 0.0001% of use of the word sustainable. Now, if you draw a line through that, you will find that in the year 2036, sustainable will most likely occur on every single page of every publication. And in 2061, sustainable will probably occur in every sentence. And in 2109, all sentences are just the word sustainable repeated over and over again. So what does that mean? It simply means the word sustainable is unsustainable. Sustainability is just a word. Sustainable development, just a vision. The SDGs are very important, but just rough goals. What we need to do is, what counts is, changes are made by people, for people, by responsible and knowledgeable people. And you're the guys who know best. So you are privileged, but also you have a large responsibility, because people in the generation, my generation, the old guys, we screwed up dramatically, and we will not be able to really clean it up. It will be you. Sorry to tell you that, but you have a responsibility, and if you think your responsibility is to get filthy rich, think again. Thank you.